go ahead and do your thing. I got this.
Don't trip over the thingy. Okay, you look nice. I might still have a picture of you.
Good evening, church. I want to talk a little bit about Dr. King. You know, since I was a child, I guess I always admired Dr. King. I remember going to kindergarten, first grade, and seeing this man talking. Of course, at that time he had passed away, assassinated. This was in 68, 69, something like that. And remember this man talking and all the people vibrating to the words that he was saying. And, you know, so, you know, always been, you know, honored Dr. King for what, you know. And, you know, of course, I Have a Dream speech. We heard that in school many times and always did. But today I want to talk about his son Dexter. And I want to read a little passage from Romans chapter 12, verse 3. Do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the measure of faith God has given you. Romans chapter 12, verse 3. In 2003, yes, that's like 4 years since my mother had passed in 99. I was walking through Newark Airport and I would frequent the bookstore. And I walked in the bookstore and I seen this book. And you can't, you know, the resemblance of this person. I said, where'd that die? I said, no. I looked real good. And it was a book of Dexter King called Growing Up King. And I couldn't help but buy it. I didn't know when I was going to read it. But I said, you know, I bought it and put it in my library. Well, years passed, and years passed, and years passed. 2023, in December, I looked up on my shelf, and I try to do 2 or 3 books a month that I read. And I said, I'm going to read this book. And I pulled the book off the shelf, and I read the book about Dexter King, Growing Up King. And he's the baby son of Martin Luther King. And the stories that I got from this book, you know, where in Morehouse, I believe, one of the professors, somebody challenged him and said, well, we're not going to treat you special because you're Martin Luther King's son, you know. I would never believe someone would, especially someone black. I would never believe someone would even say that, no matter what color they are, but especially not a black American would say something like that. This is Dexter King, Dr. King's son, you know. The fact that I learned a lot from reading this book, so I'm just going to rattle on for a minute. Him and his brother had mini bikes, you know, like I had mini bikes in Hollywood, but they had mini bikes and stuff, and they had some guy like a gardener or somebody around the house that would fix them for them and all that. Or that when Dexter and his father would walk past a housing project, and the people would say, he spit him out, you know. Or here's another story too that I got. That when they went down to their Scott family in Alabama, which would be Coretta Scott, I believe she come from Marion, Alabama. And when they went down there, the people, the relatives referred to them as Kings. You know, not King, but Kings. Here's the Kings, you know. And it was a beautiful book. So I say this right here, you know, in the death of Dexter that I'm tripping as a tribute to Dexter. God bless his soul. I'm sure he was a fine man, and I really wanted to meet up with him to discuss this book. You know, with BASA News, I wanted to discuss this book. And, but the idea that, you know, you get a chance, buy a copy of it. You know, I guess you get on eBay or Amazon or whatever, and sometimes you get it used and things of that nature, you know. And read it, you know, you really find, you get to know the family a little bit better. I think I got to know, you know, the family from the book, you know, because his sister Yolanda, I believe, she was like a playwright or something, and she always wrote plays from when she was young, and he had to kiss his sister to bring her to bring her to life. You know, they played some kind of play or whatever. He didn't like doing that, you know. Like, I guess like with me, I never liked kissing my sister, you know, and you know, and the idea too that he worked also in the Department of Corrections. You know, he worked in the Department of Corrections and stuff, and it was a lot of the blue collar black men, you know, he could lean on more so, I believe, than according from this book, than the professional ones, you know. They didn't challenge him. They looked at him as an extension of Martin Luther King, and they loved him, you know. And even in the jail, he said that a lot of times when the guys had problems, some of the other guys would settle it because he was there, you know. And also how his older brother, we affectionately call him Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the third, but it's actually Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther King the third, you know. He crashed his brother's car many times, you know, I think twice, you know, or maybe more than that, but his brother continued to let him hold cars, you know, as a baby brother, you know. And, you know, so I learned also about the intellectual property, you know, that he was able to secure that for the family and things of that nature, that, you know, the revenue that they so desperately deserved. Not so much need, but they deserved it because Dr. King was out there, you know. And we wouldn't be where we at today if it wasn't for people like his dad, without a doubt. You know, I wouldn't have the job in the airline industry, you know, and stuff, you know, if it wasn't for this man, father, you know. So I have a special affection that I have for the King family. And I only met one. I met Martin Luther King III. I met him in the airport. I met him in Newark Airport. It was a time when people were carrying cell phones. Another guy was with them, and they were getting their shoes shined. And I stopped there and seen him, and when he got off this thing, I said, "Excuse me, I don't mean to bother you." I said, "But you Martin Luther King Jr. III?" He said, "Yes." He said, I said, "I don't mean to bother you." I said, "But I grew up with your pictures in my house, in which I got a faded picture, you know, it's fading out, you know." And I said, "I grew up with your pictures in the house." I said, and my family at that time, I said, "My family come from Georgia also, you know." So you want to try to get as close, you know, as you can to the King family. So, and which my family do come from Georgia, so I mentioned that. And so just so many things, man. And to honor Dexter, man, I tell you, he was courageous. He, you know, without a doubt, he even went. Now, some things that, you know, that was in the book, that when he talked about his father's assassination, I didn't, you know. He said that James Earl Ray, he looked at James Earl Ray's eyes, and James Earl Ray said he didn't kill his father. And I don't go along with that. I think he did. So he said it's something about looking in a man's eyes, because they were trying to get, I think, a new trial for James Earl Ray. But, you know, I believe that he did because, the reason why I believe that because two things. One, he went to England, James Earl Ray went to England, and he was trying to get down to segregated segregated Africa. So he was trying to get down to South Africa, Zimbabwe, I believe at the time, or Rhodesia. He was trying to get down to those places where he could have got a job and hid, and we would have never found him. And that right there, you know, for a person that, like, if I went out and killed somebody, I wouldn't know where to run. You know, I got money to just run someplace, you know, especially to another continent. And another reason why I believe too, because when they brought James Earl Ray through Heathrow Airport, you can look this up also on YouTube. They said, the reporter said, "Did you kill Dr. King?" He said, "Yes, I killed Dr. King." That's what he said. You know, that's exactly what he said. I heard that a few years ago on YouTube, you know. So that's my reason why I believe that he did do it. You know, sometimes, you know, we try to make, I remember FBI was talking about John F. Kennedy assassinations, that we, you know, we try to make it, you know, a conspiracy or this, that, and the other, or whatever, but truth of the matter is, a lone gunman was able to get in there and penetrate our security. And, you know, and did it, you know, took out President Kennedy. And the same way with Martin, you know, a lot of times as, I won't call myself a civil rights leader like Dr. King and Al Sharpton and people like that, but Jesse Jackson. But I will say I'll just call myself a makeshift civil rights leader, you know. And a lot of times people get mad at you because you're fighting for the rights for yourself. You know, you got black folk that won't even conversate with you, but you know, and you're fighting for their rights to have the job that they have, you know. And you got other folks that just don't like you because you fight, and they don't even know why, because they haven't studied civil rights. And perhaps if they studied civil rights, they would understand, you know. So, you know, and let me see one of the things that I remember from the book. Okay, when he visited the Lorraine Hotel, he said he stood right in the position where his father got shot, you know, and he could feel something there, you know. So I think that the journey in this book, you know, for those that get to know Dexter, get to know the rest of the family, because he talks about the family, and even the assassination of his grandmother. I believe they were in the church at the time, or coming to the church. I think they were in the church at the time when it happened. Ebenezer Baptist Church. So it's a good book. It's a great read. It's 200. Let me see. It's 308 pages. You know, it's a good book, and you know, especially like Black History Month is coming, and you know, you have a lot of people out there saying that our history is under threat and this, that, and other because the schools won't teach our Black history. But I'm going to put this on record to say this right here is that the Black history that I learned and love, I didn't learn it from school. I learned it because I gravitated to that literature, you know, and that literature wasn't in school because I had white teachers that didn't want nothing to do with it. And I had black teachers that didn't want anything to do with it, you know. So the Black history I learned was really, you know, on my own, you know. So I'm not too upset about the fact that they ain't teaching Black history in school, because most of my friends, and I'm be 61 years old this year, that was in school, and some went off to black colleges. And they were a lot academically acceptable than I was. I learned really after I got out of school. And sometimes talking with them, you know, about Black history is almost like comparing the Spirit of St. Louis, Charles Lindbergh aircraft to the space shuttle. The only thing they have in common would be the wings that, you know, and wheels on the bottom of this craft that's going to go down the runway and take off up in the air. So, you know, I think that we have to, in the Black American community, rethink a lot of things. In fact, after I read this book, I read Vernon Jordan's book. He's from Georgia also, and his get to understand his journey and stuff. So the literature is here for us to do. There's no threat, and no one can take anything away from us. But Dexter, man, I really thought that I could make a video and send it out there. Maybe he would answer the call and let me interview him. And in fact, I even thought about trying to get on open line and talking to Al Sharpton. No, I'm sorry. I thought about getting on Al Sharpton show to come on WBLS after open line and, put a call out and say, Reverend, can you help me to meet Dexter, because I want to talk about his book. But it's a good reading. And I think that, it talks about the building of the King Center. It talks about his position and him taking care of, the intellectual property. And most of our people out there that's making those speeches and things, their life has been in civil rights and stuff, they need to look into their intellectual property, because the speeches that they make and things, and because you don't want anybody else to benefit off of your work after you're gone or when you're older, but your family, because you're out there and you're taken away from your family because you're not with them, because you're out there fighting for the masses and things of that nature. So it's right, and he was writing the stuff that he talked about in his book. It was just a good read. I'm going to read on the back of the book. It says, no book has captured, or someone wrote, no book has captured how much I love my father. I guess that's him. No book has captured how much I love my father or how I felt when he was killed. I didn't care about the conspiracies or anybody going to prison. I cared about getting out of prison. Pope John Paul once said that the quest for freedom is one of the great dynasties of human history. Such a quest can take many forms. I went back to Atlanta, pictures in my memory, my grandfather, hands lifted up in supplication, my grandmother at the organ, daddy ascending voice. On my father's crypt, the inscription is simple: free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Amen, Daddy, I thought. For years I've looked in the mirror and seen my father's face taped in mine. Free at last. Was I? Were we? I go back now to try and find the answer. It's a good book, man, it's a good book. I'll read this part too. He was 7 when his father fell to an assassin bullet. He ventured wildly through adolescence, shell shock from lingering pain and fresh tragedy. But as an adult, he was determined to confront the past and to find purpose in the future by discovering the truth about his father's murder and protecting his father's legacy. Growing up king to a bitterly divided country, Martin Luther King Jr. was a leader who represented shining hope and long overdue equality. To his younger son, Dexter, though Daddy was the gentle, unpretentious man who joyfully played with his children and whose steadfast, easy presence made life seem normal, even during the most turbulent days of the 1960s. Then the civil rights leader was brutally assassinated, and Dexter found his family's life and his own sense of security shattered. Under the glare of relentless, decades-long media coverage, he felt isolated from everyone, including his peers. He was traumatized further by the assassination of his grandmother, as well as the death of other family members in which foul play was suspected. Yet as he wrestled with the wretching grief he didn't know how to resolve, and despite tremendous community expectations, he decided to live his own life and uncover his true talents. Eventually, Dexter became aware of the disturbing inconsistency in the accepted version of his father's slaying. His courageous effort, widespread skepticism to investigate what really happened, resulted in a civil jury and proven was a conspiracy involving governmental agencies to murder his father. And in facing down his darkest fears, he at last secured his own freedom while protecting his family and his heritage. Growing Up King, an intimate portrait of the unforgotten hero, a loving, searching son, an unbreakable bond between them. It invokes the frustration and yielding we all experience when we struggle to come to terms with the past, and from it create a future we can be proud of. Dexter Scott King. Now Scott is his mother's maiden name, because I had one uncle name was Noah Willis Marshall, and Willis was my grandmother's maiden name. So I don't know whether that's a southern thing that they hide the name in some of the kids, but that's the name he had. He had the last name, the two last names, which would be Scott and King. King, of course, he would have that legally because of his father, but the mother has her last name there too, which, I've seen that. Dexter Scott King currently serves as chairman, president, and CEO of the King Center, based in Atlanta, Georgia. For more information on the King Center, please visit website www.thekingcenter.org. So, I just want to tap on that treasure. Now, this right here is a book. I'm doing a read of a lot of books. I have like 1,000 books. And this is one book, right, that will not be tossed. A lot of my books will be tossed because of the simple reason they have aged, and it's actually a fire hazard. So, and things are going electronically. You don't get electronic books. So, I will be tossing a lot of my books, and especially a lot of my encyclopedias. I'm doing more reading of them, and I'm getting rid of them. But this book here, I'm not going to get rid of this book. Or the book I got during the pandemic in 2020. I got a book from a friend of mine that was written by Coretta Scott King. And that book there will not be tossed. Ralph Abernathy book will not be tossed. Vernon Jordan book will not be tossed. There's going to be some black books that will be tossed. I mean, not be given away or whatever, but some books I'm not going to give away because I'm going to refer back to them. And this right here, book of Dexter, I'm definitely not going to get rid of it. Reading this book, I grew to admire the family. I grew to understand the family. And also I grew to even love the family and Dr. King more. And his mother, with the courage she had to keep things going, I learned to really appreciate that. I see some of my own character, my own family, my own mother in Coretta Scott King. I see some of my own daddy, in Dr. King in so many words. But yes, if you can, in honor of Dexter, right, please go out and purchase this book, Dexter Scott King, Growing Up King. It's an intimate memoir. Please, in honor of Dexter, go out there and purchase it now. It took me 20 years to read it. I bought it in 2003 when it first came out. I read it in 2023. So if you just buy it, just to have it in the house, and one day you feel that you want to read, and read it, I think that's one of the best ways if you want to be any help to any of the civil rights issues as of today. Go back and read those books of the past. Read Dr. King books. Read Coretta book. Read Dexter book. Read Ralph Abernathy. Ralph Abernathy book. Ralph Abernathy was with him, going to jail with him all the time. You know, read Jesse Jackson books. Read Al Sharpton. Just read those books of the past, man. The thing about being a Black American that's so different than many other groups is that we have a great library that come along with us. We have literature, man, and that literature, oh my God, you know, you can live on that alone just by itself. That literature can lift you, and it can give you strength to fight into, so you know where you at, you know, because you know people say a lot because out of I guess emotion. They say we haven't moved in progress since 1968, and you know what? If you believe that, you believe any lie. You believe the lie of the unicorn. It's a lie. We have moved a great deal, and is there still work to do? Of course, there's still work to do. There was work in Moses' time when Moses ran out of Egypt. God held the water back, let the land dry so they can walk across the sea. Pharaoh was after them. So today, as a Black American, you would be a fool today to believe that there's not Pharaoh-type characters out there. You know, you would just be ludicrous if you just believe it's not. No matter, you know, how high you rise, that you know, there's got to be a little insecurity that, you know, that someone is trying to, you know, make you backstroke. So, a way to get some courage in your battles today, I believe in reading some of those books, you know, and knowing what them brothers and sisters went through back in those days, you know, the discrimination of different things, joblessness, you know, and things of that nature. It was easy to get on welfare than it was to get a job, you know, and get an understanding so you can have something psychologically to deal, you know, when you're dealing with people and you're talking, you got some energy. If someone, you know, veer into your corner or whatever, you can counterpunch, you know how to come back on them, because, you know, maybe they don't know what they're talking about. They picked it up from the news agency. But, you know, so this reading of books like this here, you know, I'm telling you right now, especially to the Black American group, you know, this thing don't do nothing but lift you up. It makes you understand, and guess what? I can handle this. If them brothers and sisters during Vernon Jordan time, Dr. King time, if them brothers and sisters could, Ralph Abernathy, Joe Lowry, Reverend Shuttleworth time, the boy from Troy, if they could go through what they went through, we can breeze through what we're going through today, because we have a lot more resources to work with. You know, back in those days, we didn't have the resources, you know, and stuff. So today we can capture our own story, and it's our story to capture. You know, we need not feel any threatened at all by them saying that they're going to take Black history out of the schools. You know what? Tell you what, let's buy Black books and let's read our own history, because we can do that. And you find yourself learning more about yourself. You find yourself learning more about yourself if you took the initiative to start reading just, you know, some of those books from, you know, from the past about the Black struggle, you know, as I think the news people call it, PBS, the Black experience. If you just go back and read, it's one thing to look at something, but it's another thing to read it and feel it. And, you know, like now they have this machine to help kids read, and we read for them, and that's a good thing because we're in a modern time. But it's another thing to sit there and read it yourself. You know, it gives you something else. You know, it gives you, you know, it builds you a character, I believe, even more and stuff. But yes, Go back and read. And then not only that, some of our entertainers, if Dinah Ross got a book, if Patti LaBelle got a book, if Maurice White, Earth, Wind, and Fire, he had a book. I read his, of course. All of those people, you know, the Temptations, all that, you will find that story there. You'll find stories that they had to, you know, skate around different obstacles to get to where they were. So, you know, don't shy away from us. You know, you can do everything else, but don't shy away from us, you know. And I believe that God would bless us, you know. We truly fit the description of the Hebrew children that escaped Egypt, that left Egypt. So let us understand that there's a Pharaoh everywhere. And then there might not be a Pharaoh, but there may be a Pharaoh in our mind. And with what has happened to us under the Jim Crow law, you're not crazy to believe that maybe there is a Pharaoh over there. You know, you're not crazy to believe that. You know what I mean? You know, and stuff. You know, you're really not. You know, because of the limits that have been put on you. So, I'm getting hungry now, and I gotta get something to eat. I got some new teeth in my mouth, and a lot of people say I shouldn't talk about it. But well, I'm 61 years old this year, so what are you gonna do about that? You know what I mean? You know. And I gotta get used to them, so I can't eat the stuff that I really want to eat. But anyway, yes, buy those books, man. Look at our story, man. You know, our story is honest. You know, a lot of times in our community or in our black world, I'm gonna say it like that, it's not dominated with the honesty of what we do. It's dominated with the fouls that we hit or the strikeouts. But when you read these civil rights books and you see what our people have overcome, man, you feel so great, man. You feel great to be who you are. So again, this is Zachariah Jackson, Reverend Jackson of Church of What's Happening Now, and President of BASA News. Thank you for listening, and God bless the soul of Dexter King. As the people in those projects, when Martin Luther King would walk by with Dexter, said, he spit him out. That's what they would say. Them Georgia people say, he spit him out. And yes, you know, God bless his soul, and God bless the whole family, you know, because there's cousins too. He talked about some of his cousins too, you know. And, you know, they're first cousins and stuff, so, you know, they're very close. Okay, thank you. God bless. God bless. Rest in peace.